Yep.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon or evening.
Good
How are you?
afternoon, evening. Getting there.
Well, that's all that counts.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you, Counselor?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am doing fine also.
Good afternoon, Liz.
Hi, Ed. How's it
How you
going?
doing? Good, good. How are you?
Good. Been a long day.
It's been a long day. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're not careful, it'll be a long evening.
Yeah.
We got our snowstorm coming up, Counselor, huh?
Yeah. I think we're gonna get a couple inches anyway.
Yeah.
If it comes the right way. So I think Worcester got hit pretty good last week. Worcester County.
Yeah, they always do though. They're up in the hills and
Yeah.
the weather seems to get them, which is
Yeah.
probably well deserved. So we can use just a little bit.
Yeah, I think they got close to a foot up there.
Yeah.
I think we're in for a long winter.
Yep. Just added to everything else we're dealing with. It's not
Yeah.
a big issue. We can
Yeah.
handle it.
We'll give it a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Hey, Juan, it's Ed Flynn. Hey, Christian.
Hi, Counselor. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Thanks for being on with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good evening, Christian. How are you?
I'm well, Mr. Sullivan. Yourself?
Good. I actually, a day went by where you didn't call me.
Must have been a good day for you then.
It's a beautiful day.
Hey, Juan Lopez, it's Ed Flynn. Juan Lopez.
oh. One short on it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm not sure if Juan's having technical issues, but if I could help with anything, just let me know. I'm here.
Oh,
Just
hey,
waiting
Kerry.
We're just waiting for confirmation from the web team that we're live on boston.gov and we'll be set to get started whenever you are.
Okay, thanks, Kerry.
No problem at all.
So do you want to let me know when I should start, Kerry?
I'll let you know momentarily.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Anissa.
Hi, Anissa.
Good afternoon, Counselor.
Hey, Counselor, I'm still waiting for confirmation, but I don't want to hold everyone up. So we can get started, and I'll work behind the scenes to make sure we get it online as soon as we can. But I think we can get started, and we'll make it work as soon as we can.
Okay, Kerry, can you, I just see the picture of the council chamber.
Oh, yeah,
Are you-
I'll take care of that as soon as you get gaveled
Okay.
in to start. Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna gavel in now, Kerry, okay?
You got it.
Good evening, good evening. My name is Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn. I represent District 2, which includes South Boston, the South End, Chinatown, the Bay Village, Fort Point, South Boston waterfront, most of downtown and parts of the Back Bay and parts of Beacon Hill. I'm chair of the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services. Today, we are having a hearing on docket 0936, order for a hearing to discuss issues relating to water and sewer infrastructure. Additionally, we will also be discussing Boston groundwater-related issues. At this time, I am joined by my colleague, City Councilor Braden, City Councilor at Large Anissa Asabi George, District City Councilor Kenzie Bach, City Councilor at Large Michael Flaherty. I also received a letter that I'd like to read into the record from our colleague, City Councilor Andrea Campbell. Dear Chairman Flynn and colleagues on the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services, I regretfully cannot attend today's hearing on docket number 0936, order for a hearing to discuss issues relating to water and sewer infrastructure. Thank you for bringing this important issue to the council. My office has heard many concerns from constituents lately about the current state of Boston's water and sewer infrastructure, especially concerns regarding lead in older pipes. I will be represented by a member of my staff at today's hearing and look forward to reviewing the committee's report and working with the committee on any recommended next steps. Sincerely, Andrea Campbell, Boston City Councilor, District 4. This hearing is being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/citycouncil-TV. It will be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, FiOS Channel 964. The Zoom link to provide public testimony for this hearing can be found by emailing juan.lopez@boston.gov. Please make sure that your Zoom handle is your full name. When you are called, please state your name and affiliation and residence, and limit your comments to 2 minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. Our panelists that are joining us are John Sullivan, the Chief Engineer at the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, and Christian Simonelli, Executive Director, Boston Groundwater Trust. If you are unable to provide testimony today, you may also submit written testimony or a 2-minute video for our record by emailing the committee at ccc.cns@boston.gov or filling out the form on our website within 48 hours following this hearing. I will first let the sponsor of the hearing offer brief remarks, then hand it over to the panelists and my colleagues as well. We will also be available for public testimony. Thank you to the panelists and my colleagues for being here. I called this hearing to discuss the safety and maintenance of our water and sewer infrastructure, which is critical for the sanitation and public health of our residents. With the recent development boom, we need to ensure that the added buildings to our water and sewer lines do not overburden the system, and that the integrity of our infrastructure is maintained. In my district, there were unfortunately a water main break in the south end back in April, flooded many businesses and buildings, caused hardship for many residents, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. There were also other related issues, including an incident near South Station. Neighborhoods such as the South End, Bay Village, Back Bay, Fort Point, and others were built on filled land that rely on wood pilings for support, and any leakage of water pipes damage the wood pilings beneath these foundations. So it's important that we have a good update on these issues. It's also important for the residents to know exactly the importance of these quality of life and public safety issues. Finally, some Boston neighborhoods have also alleys and sewers, private sewers and alleys that abut commercial and residential properties. I know this is an issue of concern in the South End. The cost of maintenance and repair for private alleys and sewer lines can be expensive and very confusing at times for residents. So our water and sewer issues are critically important for our health, quality of life, and safety. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask, before we get to the panelists, I would like to ask my colleagues in the order of arrival if they would like to offer opening statements. I would like to start with City Councilor Liz Braden from Alston and Brighton. Councilor Braden.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Mr. Chairman. I'm really interested in this issue. We are increasing a huge amount of development in our city, and I'm interested in the capacity of our infrastructure to handle all the extra development. We also had some questions regarding the resiliency of our water and sewer infrastructure, particularly the treatment works out in the harbour is a question I had as well. So I'm really interested to listen to the conversation this afternoon, and I will ask questions as we go along. And sorry, I've got a very large frog in my throat right now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Braden. Thanks for being here with us. Next up, I'd like to ask City Councilor Anissa Sabi George if she'd like to offer any opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone who's here today. I look forward to this hearing, and especially look forward to hearing from the district councilors specific to the impacts of all of this on their respective districts. I also ask for Your forgiveness, I will be leaving a little bit early for another commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Asabi George. At this time, I'd like to ask District City Councilor Kenzie Bork if she'd like to offer opening statements.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to you as the maker of this hearing order. I think that water and sewer infrastructure is the fundamental bones of our city, is what we are talking about most basically when we talk about local services. And it really is, actually a lot of large American cities, including ours, part of what caused neighboring communities to be annexed to them 100 years ago was the promise of a sewer. And that kind of shared public infrastructure that could actually make everybody's lives a lot better. So I really appreciate the legacy of this work and just how fundamental it is to all of our constituents' lives every day. There are lots of sort of district-specific issues that I'm interested in talking about today. And then also, I think there's a really big piece of work for water and sewer when it comes to green infrastructure and thinking about how our city, as we make needed repairs and replacements going forward to deal with growth, as Councilor Braden alluded to, how we also make sure that we're proactively raising our standards to be more ones in line with green infrastructure and the city's carbon goals. So I'd like to understand how the department is working on that front as well. But really looking forward to the hearing today. And as a new counselor, also very much just looking forward to all that I'm sure I'll learn. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Bork. Next up is City Councilor at Large, Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I've got a couple of meetings that I have to attend as well, so this is very timely. It's good to see John Sullivan, and I want to give a shout out to Henry Vitale. I think as a public servant, he's arguably probably one of the best and most responsive that I've encountered in my entire career as the longest serving councilor. So Boston Water and Sewer in particular is in good hands under the leadership of Henry Vitale and the great work of John Sullivan and his team over there. And so I don't want to take away from this hearing. Obviously, we've got something filed just basically based on the latest breaking news. If John has the ability in his introductory just to maybe just comment on the email that had gone out the other day with respect to the lead levels and some of the properties that were tested, just to give assurances to the public and particularly the homeowners and the ratepayers that our water is safe and it's arguably some of the best water in the country. And with that, we're going to have an order for a hearing to just talk about the programs that we have that are available for homeowners and ratepayers so that they have the ability to maybe switch out of their lead pipes. And I know that we do have programs available. Not enough folks take advantage of that, but want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to provide the best water and obviously sewer like we do. And it's under the leadership of the folks that are there. And John obviously is here as one of the top officials there. And I just want to give a shout out as well to Henry Vitale. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a very timely hearing as we're coming down to the end of the year and the coincidence of the most recent announcement by the Water and Sewer that we'll address this Wednesday very briefly. But while we have John in our presence and because we won't be able to have a hearing once our last council meeting adjourns until the new year, it may make sense for Water and Sewer just to maybe give a couple minutes of their time to addressing that issue so that the public, particularly members of the council, sort of know, have the facts, if you will, have the facts so that we could advise folks that are calling our offices. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see John and the folks at Water and Sewer.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. As I mentioned, the two panelists are John Sullivan with the Water and Sewer and Christian Simonelli, Executive Director of the Boston Groundwater Trust. I know Mr. Sullivan has a PowerPoint presentation. Maybe we can start with Mr. Sullivan first with opening comments in the presentation, followed by Christian Simonelli after that. So John, do you want to start now and do your power presentation and opening statements?
Sure, Councilor. And, thank you very much for inviting the Water and Sewer Commission to present what we do. I think it was stated several times, but it's absolutely true. The water and sewer systems are the foundation of any modern city. They grind to a halt. If you have no water for firefighting, for sanitation, if you've got flooding, if you've got sewage backups, you can't live that way. The good news is nobody pays attention to us if all is going well. Unfortunately, it's when a disruption occurs that everyone is reminded how important we are. tonight, what I wanted to do is give a little background. I read the order itself, and there's a couple of issues in the order that I thought if we could, share a screen, we could go ahead and take a look at, give me 1 second to pull it up. I'm assuming everyone can see that.
I don't see, we don't see it yet, John.
Okay, Kerry had it up earlier, so I see it beautiful, but you don't see anything yet.
No, Kerry, can you check to see if we can get that presentation on the screen?
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan, if you just share screen like we did earlier,
Yes.
that should do the trick.
Hold on 1 second. I did, and I'm trying to get this thing down, and I can't. Let me end the show. And all right, let me try the share screen again. Did you catch that yet?
Yeah, it's coming on now, John.
Yeah, there you go, John. See it.
Okay, this is why I'm in the engineering and not the IT department. So what I wanted to go over today is some really quick ones about the water and sewer and the basics of what we do. First of all, we were created in 1977. And the reason we were created is they wanted to make sure that we had just one group of people worrying about the foundation of our city, making sure that we kept the water and sewer systems in good shape. We are overseen by a 3-member board of commissioners appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council. And we have been running this system since 1978, and we've made incredible improvements. And we did exactly what was the reason we were created by the city council as a home rule petition. I showed this really quickly. A lot of the city is filled land. You see this in the circular area. The dark green is what the original Boston was. All that light green is filled in land. And what makes that important is filled in land. If you want to build a building, you need to support those buildings with wooden piles. And those wooden piles, if they're going to stay in good shape, need to remain wet at all times. And that will get us into the groundwater discussion. This is our city today. The beauty is this is what we get to enjoy, but we need to pay attention to everything that's underground. The current water supply to Boston, for those that need to be reminded of it, many of us know it, comes all the way from the Quabbin Reservoir, which is 65 miles away. It's a marvel of engineering. We have 5 years worth of water. If it doesn't rain out, we have 5 years supply sitting up there in the Quabbin Reservoir that we can work around. And if we do have a drought of that extent, it's gravity fed. Another remarkable thing. We don't have problems with energy or energy conservation. There are some small areas that are pumped, but in general, all of our water comes down by gravity. It is run by the MWRA, the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. The question about consumption, with all the new building, can we handle it? If you take a look at this graph, 1980 down to 2019, we were over our safe yield supply. We can supply, that reservoir can supply easily 300 million gallons a day with no problems at all. But we were running around 320 at our max, 310 in this slide. And over the years, Boston Water and Sewer and all the other communities have worked hard, along with state building code changes, to reduce the amount of water being used by the system. This is by the entire system now, down to 180 million gallons a day, which one could conclude we have 120 million gallons that we can continue to use and not be outside our safe yield. This is Boston's water use. If you take a look at 1901 is on your left-hand side. Over the years, we continually use more and more water. You can see we were peaking, and this is one of the problems and the reason the commission was created. In 1976, we were using 151 million gallons a day. In 2019, we used 62.13 million gallons a day. That assures us that we will have adequate water supply for our residents. This is our consumption trend. Just want to show you that we keep working on it. The blue lines are the total water we bought, and the red lines are what we sold. And the rest is lost water, is what we call unaccounted for water. A lot of it is used for firefighting, for street sweeping, et cetera, in the construction activities we have. But the idea is you want that as small as possible. You want to be productive. You want to have great efficiencies in the water you buy. And we're getting there. We have over 1,000 miles of water main. There's different pressure zones, not that important with you, but we maintain 1,000 miles of water pipe with almost 13,000 fire hydrants, which we keep in great shape, and a bunch of gate valves so we can control our system. The age of the water mains, everyone talks about how old they are. Well, we do have some old water mains. You can see we still operate water mains. The oldest one is 1848. It's under the Boston Common. It was the original pipe put in when they had the great celebration when they first introduced public water to the city of Boston. That's in there and it's in great shape. Just because a water main is old doesn't mean it isn't useful. The problem we have with the water mains is corrosion, not age. It's the corrosion that works on the wall thickness that slowly eats away at it that makes it weaker. And that's the big key. So just because we have old pipes, that doesn't mean anything as far as the operation of them. And we just put the wars so that everybody can see when they were. We have pipes before the Civil War. Water main breaks per year. This is a huge number. The average amount of water main breaks, according to the Water Research Foundation, is 250 breaks per 1,000 miles of pipe. We have about 1,000 miles of pipe. You can see here from 1993 to now, we have been averaging in between 35 and 40 water main breaks a year. It's virtually nothing. Now, the good news and bad news is in other cities, since they have so many, it's old news. Nobody ever sees it on the news. With us, one good water break, that's all the news people want to do. Get down and take a look at this water main break. But this shows that our system is solid. We're in very good shape for a very good structural system of pipes delivering water to all of our neighborhoods. The sewer system was the pride of the day. We used to just run the sewage and with the drainage right into the harbor, all along the harbor. That's why no one wanted to live along the waterfronts. And you would just flush and down it would go. When they started in 1878 building the brand new system of pumping sewage, and of course we simply pumped it over to Moon Island and then let it go in the outgoing tides, it was the civic pride. Everyone thought it was important. It was the best thing going. And here are some pictures of people celebrating the fact that the best brick masons in the world aren't in showing our cathedrals, et cetera. They're in our sewers. The sanitary and stormwater system is over 1,500 miles of wastewater. There's a bunch of catch basins, and you can see all that data. A lot of things that we need to work on. Mm-hmm. The age of the system, again, we just show you how old it is. Just because a pipe is old, if it's sitting in the ground and it's surrounded by clay and not disturbed, it can last for a very long time, especially our brick infrastructure. Of course, you talk about in Europe, those things go back 600, 700, 800 years. Our major projects in the commission for our capital are water main replacement, sewer and drain. We also separate a lot of sewers. We have combined sewers that are designed to take sewage and stormwater in the same pipe. And the problem with that is when it rains out real hard, they overflow into the harbor. So we've been doing a lot of work over the past 20, 30 years, separating these things out. We have active sewer separation in Roxbury, active ones in East Boston. We're running around taking illegal connections where the house sewers are illegally connected to drain lines. We walk around taking those out. And these are just the major projects that the commission currently is undertaking in our latest capital improvement program, which, when approved by our commissioners, will be on our website. This just shows you the breakdown, how much money we're spending and where the money is divided up in percentage-wise. We have major preventive maintenance programs, and this is the key to running any system. The last thing you want to do is let something wear out, and so you have to put a brand new one in. You always want to be working on the pipes. You always want to be cleaning them, flushing them, making sure they work fine. And if there is a defect, you want to be able to get in there and fix the one little defect so the whole system doesn't fail. So we flush all our water mains. We're out there looking for leaks all the time, because if you can catch a leak before it gets too big, you can prevent a break. We inspect the inside of all of our sewer and sanitaries. We do about 60 miles of sewer a year, at least, as a minimum. And at the end of 10 years, we will have looked inside every single pipe, and we will know the condition of them. We maintain rain gauges throughout the city because of the climate change. It is changing. We have a system where we can check water in 5-minute increments. We are the only city we know of that checks it in 5-minute increments. Everyone else is in 15 minutes. And we inspect our manholes looking for potential problems. The issue of private sewers and private alleys came up. As far as we know, best from we can get from our records is there's just shy of 6 miles of sanitary sewers in private alleys that serve multiple connections, multiple homes. And they are all over the city. There's not just one place in the city that doesn't have them. Even in West Roxbury, we have a bunch of septic systems and some of these private sewers up in that area. The commission, to deal with that, we passed a betterment assessment charge. You can, through our policy, apply to us, and we will do a study, figure out what it would take to put in a brand new pipe. And we offer 25%, we will pay for it. And then we have the homeowners pay the remaining 75% of the cost of putting in the sewer. But from that time on, we own the sewer. Now, believe it or not, all the sewers, or most of the sewers in the city of Boston, this is how we extended them. We had this policy. It's an old city policy. When the commission was formed in 77, there was none at the Boston Water Sewer. It took us about 20 years when several people approached us to come in this. So we have a policy. Any of these alleys, if they meet certain criteria, can apply under the betterment system, and we can extend the sewer system, and we will own it from then on. The Boston Groundwater Trust, we work with them very closely, monitoring the wells. A lot of times you'll have problems. And why would we get involved? Well, what's interesting about it is there's the picture again of the Back Bay filled area. Any place here, if the groundwater is leaking into a tunnel or into sewers, and it doesn't have to be just the Boston Water Sewer infrastructure. The pipes leading from your building, your home, to the middle of the street are owned by the homeowner. Many of those pipes are in tough shape. They actually can deplete groundwater. And so we go out and we work when we find an area that's got depressed groundwater. We will go out and we will work to determine where the problem is. And it may be our problem and it may be a homeowner's problem. I do point out that as part of our enabling legislation, it actually says that we are not imposed to maintain groundwater levels. However, we know it's so very important for the vibrancy of this city that we keep the groundwater high, that we keep all the systems working well. And depressed groundwater can also have other things. Depressed groundwater can cause some of our pipes to settle also. We are always doing water quality improvements to the harbor, the illegal connections, as I mentioned, the separation of house laterals. We're bringing up some other things in the Island Arboretum. We're looking to build some constructed wetlands. We build rain gardens. It was brought up about green infrastructure, which we can go into further in questions. But this is just some of the things we're touching on stormwater. We have a lead replacement program. This is to help remove lead from the front yards of homes. We've been doing this for many years. We enhanced it in 2016. The grant is now $2,000 grant. We will go in, we will replace it. The first $2,000 is forgiven. You can pay us directly for the rest of it, or you can have an interest-free payment over 48 months. Leak up to owner, we will go in if there's a leak in the front lawn and you can't get your own contractor, we will go in there, we will perform the work, and we give them interest-free payments over 24 months. And finally, the sewer lateral assistance program. As shown in this little diagram in the red, that's the lateral coming from your house out to the main street. Most people don't know they own it. They generally find out they own it when the sewage backs up in the house and we go try to help them out. So many times it costs upwards of $8,000, $9,000. We give a grant up to $4,000 to the homeowner after they go through certain procedures to get an approved contractor to go out and repair the work. There's a bigger picture of the sewer lateral. So these are our contact numbers. I'll just leave this up for a second. 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365. That's our phone number. You can get us anytime. You can also call the mayor's office. They know how to get us hold of us right away too. The lead line, I put that number up there. We're leaving that out and we're giving notice to all of our residents. If they have any questions at all about lead, please contact us. If they want to know if there's a lead line coming in their house, please contact us. We would like to work with them and determine if they have it. Now, we do have a website. Those places we know we have lead lines, you can go on the website and we can tell you whether you have one. If you don't know, if you're confused, give us a call. we will come out to your house and we will take a look at it. And that's all I had, Counselor, just to give you a quick overview of what we're up to.
Thank you. Thank you, John. That was very helpful, it was informative, and I'm sure it was very informative for the residents that are listening on cable television. So thank you, John. And as Councilor Flaherty mentioned, I also wanted to highlight the work of Henry Vitale for being very responsive to the residents of the city. So thank you to Henry, and thank you, John, for that presentation and for working closely with the residents on this important issue. You're right, it doesn't, it's not often in the newspaper or discussed, but it's a critical issue, water and sewer issues. If that doesn't work, nothing really works, but it's the nuts and bolts of city government. So we appreciate the dedicated water and sewer team that works with you. Next up, I was going to ask Christian Simonelli from the Groundwater Trust to provide an opening statement. And after that, we'll take some Q&As for both of you from my colleagues. Christian?
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you for everybody that's attending tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to participate and be here. Just really echoing on John's sentiments, we work together very closely on this, and John certainly pointed out at the commission, obviously what they have stipulated, they are not responsible for maintaining groundwater. But in 2005, they came together with all the other agencies that have below grade infrastructure and signed a memorandum of understanding that created the City State Groundwater Working Group. And ultimately, that's really where all the work is done. We meet every quarter. I get up, I give my spiel on where the groundwater levels are, and then we go around the room and we see who has what where and where the areas are low. Those entities work to investigate, and if they're responsible and they find infrastructure that's compromised, they fix it. And that's really been the group that has gotten the most work done and has really helped us raise and maintain the water table. We're going to need to monitor. We're going to need to do this in perpetuity. As long as these buildings are on piles, we're going to need to monitor the levels, and things are going to break. I make the comparison. It's like owning a home. Something always breaks, whether it's a washing machine or a dishwasher or a dryer, whatever. The home needs to be maintained, and that's ultimately what we do. So happy to be here again, as I mentioned, and certainly answer any questions anybody has. Also, if anybody wants me to pull up any graphics, I'll be happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Christian. And I had a great opportunity to visit in East Boston. Actually, last year they installed the groundwater. I was with you, and it took several hours, but the dedicated team there did a tremendous job, and it was great learning about the process of installing that system. So wanted to say thank you to you and the team and in your working relationship with the Water and Sewer Commission. I have questions, but I will hold off until the end, and I'll give my colleagues an opportunity to ask questions first. So having said that, I will start with Councilor Liz Braden.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. It's amazing. You're quite right. Our water and sewer system is really essential. It's below the surface. We don't think about it too often until something goes wrong. With increased precipitation and events of very intense rainfall, how are we equipped to deal with increased stormwater events that can put a stress on our water and sewer system?
So much of the system was built over the years based on what we call a 10-year design storm, a storm that we would assume that would happen every 10 years. And of course, you hear in the news about the 100-year event and the 500-year event. Well, in a case of a 100-year storm event, well, that's precipitation. You say you get 10 inches of rain, there will be flooding because our system isn't designed to take it. Our system is designed to take what we call the 10-year event, which is about 5.5 inches of rain. So we can handle that really no problem. We are studying right now places where we can store rainwater, places where we can, like the Arnold Arboretum, some of the golf courses, where we have green infrastructure going in across the city, where everyone that builds in the city of Boston since 1996 has been required to hold the first inch of rain in their yards. Somewhere underground, there's a little storage. Now, this helps us with the groundwater problem in downtown Boston, because we take that first inch of rain, we don't carry it out to the river, we put it back into the groundwater. So this is a very important function, but it also gives us a little relief for the first inch of rain. We're working very closely with the City of Boston's climate change people, all of them, both the BRA and the Environment Department, BPDA and the Environment Department. And we're working on what will we do with the sea level rise along with the rainfalls. And we just came out with a brand new model. It is not up on our website yet. It should be up there by perhaps the end of this week, maybe next week, where we've analyzed, and we have the most advanced model, we've analyzed the impact of rainfalls up to the 500-year event on the city of Boston. And I can make sure that each of the councilors get a link to that. And there's a storyboard, and you'll be able to see what will happen to us. You can't prevent the very, very large 100-year storms. You can't prevent them. We need to deal with them. And our issues are, we will deal with them and we will recover. So the key with us is, how fast can we recover? How can we get back up and running? And also, we want to make sure that the city can keep their streets open. We need to be able to tell the emergency management people, if certain streets are going to flood and they're impassable, they need to know that ahead of time for the ambulance services, the police, the fire. So we're working closely with the city on climate change adaptation. We're monitoring the rainfalls. We're collecting data. We have the most up-to-date model on the rainfall. And as I said, we can share that with you.
That's very good. I'm excited to see that. We have a rain garden in our backyard. We were plagued with flooding in our basement for years, and so we take all our rainfall, all the water from our roof, instead of going into the storms, it goes down into the backyard, and we have a rain garden. That means we don't have to use any hoses all summer, so it works very well. But that's my own little domestic scale stormwater management system out here. The other question I had was really about the processing plant out in the harbor. I understand like sea level is rising, and how resilient and robust is that facility to withstand rising sea level?
So that facility was actually designed with the rising sea level in mind. It is already raised when they built it back several years ago. It is owned and operated by the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. We don't run it. We transport our wastewater there, and they run it. But we discuss with them at least twice a month this whole climate adaptation, what we'll do, because we're so reliant on them. And we are confident that they will be able to continue to run that. It should be easy if they need to build additional walls around it, but right now it can withstand the 100-year flood, I believe, in the year 2030 or 2050. And they're monitoring it as we're monitoring it. So it's a collective group of people, including the city of Boston, the mayor's office, working with their environment and the BPDA.
Well, that's good to know. When we talk about 2030, people always think it's way far off in the future, and it's only 10 years away now. So it concentrates the mind. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Next up is Councilor Bach for questions to either Mr. Sullivan or Mr. Simonelli. Hey, Councilor Bach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question really is, I'm encouraged to hear what you just mentioned about thinking about how we're going to prepare for sea level rise. And I guess one of the things I alluded to in my opening statement that I'm most curious about is how, in terms of how Boston Water and Sewer does its work and its sort of routine updates, like to what extent is BWSC itself expecting to sort of integrate, bioswales and work with Public Works around permeable pavement? I mean, just thinking about like what our kind of standard order in the city for what things we put in, what things we install, and what we consider to be the kind of necessary maintenance. I'm aware that a lot of going from gray to green infrastructure involves infrastructure that takes some more routine maintenance versus the sort of set and forget it stuff of the past. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to us about how you're adjusting your kind of maintenance and replacement schedules to think about shifting in that green infrastructure direction.
So in any street we work on, we try to look for opportunities. Of course, there's not that much opportunity in a lot of the streets because they're full of utilities and there's not that much public space. We have many studies, which I can share with you, on what we're going to do with the green infrastructure of the city. We have been studying this for the last 7 years. We have 3 pilots. Central Square in East Boston is a pilot with all types of different green infrastructure that we've been maintaining to see how well it works and what works best in the city. Audubon Circle is one that we're actually running tests. University of New Hampshire is running tests to see how well that's working, to hold the first inch of rain. And what does it take to maintain these? Everyone says, let's build them. We believe the life cycle on these may be only 15 years, where normally everything else we build is a 100-year life cycle. So we need to change the way we think. We've been working with, like, for instance, Boston College has a huge green infrastructure system set up on the old seminary grounds. And we've been working with them over the years. And the key now is to figure out when do they need to be replaced and how do we possibly maintain these and what is the cost of doing that maintenance. So we have a ton of studies where we're under consent order to remove phosphorus from the Charles River. That's with the EPA. And we have a plan and program to do that. And we're looking at building constructed wetlands, like I mentioned in the Arboretum, where we can actually have something where the public can enjoy. We can use it to treat stormwater. And if we build it right, we can actually use it to hold back stormwater when it's very, very high to avoid flooding. So I've got a plethora of studies, and we will definitely share them with you. And then you can ask additional questions.
That sounds great. I think, yeah, what I'm interested in is definitely how can we go from the studies and pilots to sort of the scale of infrastructure investment. And it sounds like really shifting our maintenance capacities as well to actually get us to where the city has committed in these plans that we need to go, right, in terms of climate adaptation. And I'm well aware, with my kind of ways and means hat on, that is going to involve resources. And I think that for us on the council, having an understanding of what the scale is going to look like to execute that, and what the timeline looks like of going from, whatever we're learning in East Boston or Audubon Circle, which I would love to know more about. That's my district. To what we could do at scale. That just really feels like the important question at hand to me.
And we do work with Public Works. I know we're working down on New England Avenue. The entire street is a green infrastructure street. And then we're going to see how do we maintain that. Also, the issue of green infrastructure, if we do it right and bring the water under the trees, we can take care of the heat island effect, which is another important part that we're working with the city on. The best place to do green infrastructure, though, is on private property. There's more land. And so we need to think of a way we can get public-private partnerships with them, and whether we put the grant out to build the thing and that they maintain it in the future. So we benefit as a city. They benefit because they get the thing built for them. And if we ever wind up with a stormwater fee in the future, there'd be discounts on that stormwater fee because they're taking care of the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, and I'd love to talk at some point about the phosphorus issue. So I know I've got the Muddy River running through my district, and I know it's one of I think it's the second most polluted tributary of the Charles. But I didn't know, is the phosphorus issue, is that coming from the rivers, or is that coming from other just like stormwater overflow into the river? What's the source of that problem?
See, according to the EPA, most of the source is the runoff from airborne pollution that lays on impervious areas, on rooftops, on roadways, etc. We also know that there was a lot of phosphorus coming from illegal sewer connections or leaky sewer laterals, the pipe coming out of the houses. We've been fixing a ton of those. So we have a program going out that we're required to go into our storm drains and find out if there's any sewage in them, and is that sewage getting into our waterways, because sewage contains a lot of phosphorus. And so we've been doing work on that. We've got several consultants out right now working in the whole district tributary to the Charles to find and locate these and make the repairs. And fortunately, our commissioners have always funded what we need to make the necessary repairs right away, not putting it off for 5 years, do it now.
And have we seen any decline in the phosphorus levels yet, or?
Well, because everything was done on tabletop exercises, we have a consultant right now. We're testing everywhere, including the Muddy River. We hired in the fence gatehouses, we will be putting in devices trying to figure out, is there a way we can actually purify the water for the phosphorus? University of New Hampshire claims that they have a way to measure it better. So we need to measure where it's coming so we can go solve the problem. Right now, everyone says it's citywide. We don't believe that. We believe that a couple of storm drains may be the bad actors. And if we spend a lot of money on those, we'll take care of the problem. So we've got many studies underway. And what we want to make sure is we spend the public money wisely. We want to make sure we know what we're doing, make sure you understand the problem before you try to solve the problem.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I know there's very active interest in my district in the water quality of the Muddy. So anything that I can do to help on that, would love to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Bork. Next up is Councilor Flaherty. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, just a couple of questions. I know you touched a little bit about it in the presentation with respect to sort of the lead pipe issue. If you can maybe just touch a little bit about what programs we have available to help homeowner and ratepayers remove the pipes. That's the first question. Second issue, obviously, is the private ways. As a citywide council, I get a lot of those calls from neighborhoods that have private ways. And when, whether it's there's a collapse or a rupture, it tends to sort of fall on the homeowner ratepayer. And I just got to think that there's sort of a better way we can handle that. There's so many folks that may not be in a position either financially to absorb a major project like that. And then lastly, really more of a southwest corner, but on the irrigation systems, folks that have sprinklers, they get charged for the water and the sewer. And was wondering if there was a way that clearly we need to charge them for the water usage, but if that water is not entering a sewer system, it's almost kind of getting there like a double bang. So very much like we're holding the private way people accountable to sort of make those repairs. It's almost like we're kind of having a both ways. We're having the private way people do something one way, but then when it comes to sort of irrigation sprinkler systems, we're kind of double charging people. So I'm hoping that we can sort of find some middle ground on both of those to bring relief to homeowners and ratepayers across the city. So those are just my three questions, and I'll wait for the answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Councilor. Well, on the sprinkler systems, right off the bat, we have a program. You can get an abatement meter for your underground sprinkler systems. The program is in existence, and I can get some more information to you about that. So we do allow people to get the rebate on the sewer charge. If it doesn't go back to the sewer, you don't pay for it. So that's already set up. On the lead pipes, it's important to note there is no lead in the water mains running up and down your streets. There is no lead in that water. It's lead-free water. The problem is water corrodes. And although we've adjusted the pH of the water, the acidity of the water, to minimize the corrosion, if it sits inside a pipe long enough, and it could be a copper pipe or lead pipe or any type of pipe, it will leach, it will corrode the pipe. And what's happening in the city is those people that have lead pipes, service pipes, into their homes, it sits there overnight for 6 hours, and it can have an increased level of lead there. There's a very simple solution. If you run the water in the morning really quick for up to 2 minutes, and you can tell it's been about 2 minutes, it gets really cold. The water in the pipes is really cold out in our street. You will flush out that contaminated water. And this just happens. We want to get rid of all the lead in the city of Boston. 1934 is when we stopped putting in lead pipes in the city of Boston. So the housing stock built after 1934 should not have a lead pipe from the main into the property. Boston Water Sewer has been replacing lead pipes for years, even before with the Public Works Department. Right now, we don't have any publicly known lead pipes. We have about 3,000 pipes that we don't know what the material is. Could be lead, it's probably copper. And we have a program that we're starting up right now to find out those 3,000. We will determine and make sure there is no public lead services. Now, when I say public lead, that's only to the back edge of sidewalk. The homeowner owns it from the back edge of the sidewalk into the building. So we know that right now, we know there's about 4,000 of those that are lead. We send them a letter every year. We urge them to take it. There's a program. We'll give you $2,000 towards that removal. We'll do the work with you and you can get 4 years to pay us back. We'll put it on the water bill. And we're going to continue to push that. We are urging people, if you don't know what your pipe is and it's coming through the wall, 2 options. 1, scrape the pipe with a knife, just nice and gently, don't cut through it. If it looks like a nickel, you got a lead pipe. If it looks like a penny, you got a copper pipe. That's how straightforward it is. And if it looks like blue plastic to begin with, hold your knife. So that's what we can do. But if you don't want to do that, call us. We will come to your house. We'll do all the precautions with the COVID, et cetera, but we will check it out. We will check out anyone's house that has the inquiry. And I gave that lead pipe number there. And the final one is the private ways. Most people way back when paid an assessment to have these pipes put in the ground. The city's old assessment policy was 25% paid for by the city, 75% was paid for by each of the homeowners. It generally went on your tax bill and you paid it over 20 years, 30 years. And that's how most of the sewers in the city went in. That's what our betterment policy does. It's similar to what the city did forever. If you've got a private sewer, if there's multiple places, and if it's public way open up, if it's a private way open to public travel, we will come out, we will design it after we receive a petition. We'll tell you how much money it will cost you. It'll tell you how much you can pay it over so many years. And we go through all of that. We'll put up the first 25% of the money and we will build it if the vote of the group in the private way wants it. So we have a system for all of these things and you know, trying to always work with the homeowners. Recently, Curlew Street in West Roxbury, they went in, they did the petition. We built a brand new system for them. Bond Street in the South End, likewise. They petitioned us. We analyzed it, came up with a price and built them a new sewer system. So the additional questions?
Michael, do you have further questions?
No, thank you, John, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's very good. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Council Flaherty. I'll ask my questions, then I'll take public testimony, and maybe we'll go through a second round if necessary. John, just wanted to follow up on the issue that we dealt with over the weekend where we informed residents about the precautions to take in terms of running the water for 1 to 2 minutes. Can you talk about the public awareness campaign that water and sewer will do or will continue to do? What is the best way to reach residents that are often hard to reach at times, and whether it's through social media or phone calls, or how are you engaging the residents?
Well, there's a multifaceted, and we're putting together a plan that needs to be approved by DEP. When you saw the numbers that said we got over the action level of 15 parts per billion, that requires regulatory controls that we need to do this intensive public education program. Now, in 2003, we went over 15 and we did one then, and then we got under 15 and all those requirements were lifted. Yet it was still the same water going through the pipes, et cetera. It's a luck of the draw when we take 25 samples that several of them were over it. Being that said, we now need to go to doctors' offices, local health centers, where we will be flooding them with information so that all the people coming in, we're going to go to community groups and the neighborhood meetings, and we will be providing all types of information. The key we need people to know is, number one, we're there if you need us to come in and take a look at your particular home. We will check that out and see what we've got. That's number one. Number two is we're urging everyone, flush the water after it's sat in the pipe. Now, the regulatory requirement of the copper is up over 1,000 parts per billion. Yet our numbers are coming in at 300 or 400. There may be people that are sensitive to drinking copper. So they should flush it and flush away that copper pipe that's coming in. You can have lead solder in your homes. If your home was built before 1986, there may be lead solder. You want to flush that. So Water corrodes whatever vessel it's in. It leaches stuff in. You don't need to be drinking that. Just flush it out and off it goes. And so that's what we'll be doing. We'll be going around everywhere. We will have a plan. When our plan is approved by DEP, we can certainly give all the councilors a copy of the plan. So you'll see exactly what we're planning on doing.
Thank you, John. Christian, I wanted to follow up on your opening statement as it relates to groundwater related issues. What is the biggest challenge, obstacle you see on this issue, knowing that we have a lot of old homes, we have a lot of old neighborhoods, a lot of old infrastructure. Is this system that you have, the groundwater system, safe, reliable? And what's your biggest concern at this point?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started here 20 years ago, we had about 150 monitoring wells throughout the city. And we were just starting to get a handle on where the water table was. And we didn't have enough coverage at that time to give us a real accurate picture on the areas that we needed to be paying attention to. For a period of about 6 years, we worked to install over 600 wells to build out the network that we have now to just over 800 wells. So we have 707 wells on this side of the city, and then roughly 73 wells in East Boston. So the coverage that we have is great. We basically have a well in every corner in the mid block. We read the wells about 6 to 8 times per year, and we know where the water levels are. More importantly, we have building information that tells us where the tops of the piling cutoffs are under the buildings. Unfortunately, those records aren't that complete, but we've worked pretty hard over the past decade to pull together as much information as we could on buildings. And we've used that coupled with our water level measurements, coupled with the efforts at the City State Groundwater Working Group to target the specific areas that may have depleted levels, work with those entities and help, fix whatever they have. John mentioned about removing the phosphorus. I believe the language that they use, if I'm not mistaken, to comply with that consent decree is essentially the language that was pulled from the Article 32 zoning that it was established in 2006, the 1-inch capture requirement. So, the establishment of the Groundwater Conservation Overlay District was really, really important to, one, get water back in the ground through the recharge systems. So instead of having it go into John's systems, or instead of having it just go out into the sidewalk and ultimately end up in the catch basins and the sewers and the storm drains and the gutter, go back into the ground to help recharge the groundwater. But the second most, important component of that is the no harm component. So, you mentioned new construction and the city being able to handle the amount of infrastructure that's coming in for new buildings. What's just as important from our point of view is how those are built. Somebody comes in and they want to put in a skyscraper and they want to put in 3 levels of underground parking. If that's in the G-code, that is now designed to be watertight. And we have an engineer essentially stamp a plan, what's called a no harm letter. And what that does is it details how the construction is going to be designed and constructed to not negatively impact the groundwater table. So no sump pumps, no under drains, nothing that's going to have a negative impact on the water table. In other words, not hamper all the efforts that we're trying to do to raise and maintain the levels. Moving forward for us, one of the biggest challenges is going to be in the residential areas, people that are digging down to put in underground parking. Mm-hmm. Back Bay, South End, people are getting a lot more creative with these underground parking systems. If they have the means to do it, they're doing it. Those, more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, are vital to make sure that those are put in right, to make sure that those are constructed right, and those are waterproof, because you got an immediate impact right in the vicinity. You got basically a row house in the middle of a block. You got a neighbor on either side of you. You got neighbors across the street from you. If that's put in, and if that's not put in right, you're going to be putting those buildings immediately at risk right away. But that's the whole reason why we monitor. That's the whole reason why the zoning's in place. That's the whole reason why ISD enforces the G-code. Anybody that digs down, they get flagged and they go for the building permit. They got to go through the process of zoning board of approval, and they have to provide us, and they have to provide, the inspectional services department when they're going to get the building permit, those two pieces of compliance. So The inch compliance, water and sewer issues an approval letter. They're kind enough to review the plan and issue a approval letter, 2-paragraph letter stating that the applicant's met the requirement. And then the applicant, if they're digging down, also requires that no harm letter. So I think we're in a pretty good place. Obviously, the continued funding we're funded, through the city's environment department and Chief Cook and Commissioner Spector. We're contracting annually to do the work from them. We've been level funded since 2008. The relationship has been wonderful. Relationship has been wonderful through the City State Groundwater Working Group. And again, that's really where those relationships, give us the ability to manage this.
Mhm.
We're not an approval entity. We're not an authority. We're here as sort of a custodian, shepherding and reporting on the levels and say, this is where it's low, this is where we have the issue, or this is where it's good, keep it up. This is where it's high. On the flip side, we've had times where the groundwater levels are shut up for some reason and water and sewer has gone out and their lead detection crews and they found they got water leaking into the ground. And they wouldn't have known if we hadn't been monitoring the levels. So overall, I think we're in pretty good shape. And if you would allow me, do I have the ability to share my screen as a panelist?
Yes, yes.
I just wanted to pull up briefly just a presentation, just quickly. Can everybody see this?
It's about to be shared now. It's on now, Christian. Yep, looks
Okay.
good.
And basically what this is this was a porous alley that was constructed in 2013. And what we did was we partnered with the city and we partnered with Charles River to install a porous alley in the south end. And, you talk about an example as to where, where do we have projects and what are the results? Here's, Exhibit A right here. This is a plaque that's on either end of the alley and the alley in the south end in Boston. Give you an idea where it is. It's just off of Columbus Ave and it's Public Alley 543 in between West Canton and Holyoke. And we were a stakeholder in this. And what we were responsible for was essentially installing 2 observation wells in the alley to gauge the effectiveness of the recharge system. So once this alley was completed, conventional asphalt is on the outside of this red box, and the interior of the red box is the actual porous asphalt, about 800 square feet. And what we did was we put 2 data loggers in there, and we've had them in for almost a decade. What we've seen really is a positive trend in the water table that's held, about a gain of about a half a foot in the water table in those 2 wells that's been consistent really since the installation. And what this tells us is that the more of these we put in, the more impact we're going to have on water levels. And as you can see, again, about a half a foot gain in each of those wells. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but for us, it's pretty significant because when we go out and read these wells, you got maybe an inch or 2 change from the last reading that we had maybe 6 weeks ago, because it's all dependent on what we get for rainfall. That's what feeds the groundwater table. So the more of these systems we have in, the more areas we have green infrastructure, water getting in the ground, the better it's going to be for us. Boylston Street, again, this is a city project. They put in porous concrete pavers. This is along Boylston Street, just across from the public library. It'd be wonderful if we could get more of these in as well. Again, these little slots here allow for the water to percolate when it rains. So right before it hits the gutter, instead of just, cascading off into the street, goes back into the ground. John mentioned East Boston Central Square. This is actually the plaque in Central Square that BWSC has at the entrance. And again, shows all the benefits of the green infrastructure. And again, just highlights, again, the 3 different types of, systems that they have: impervious concrete, pervious pavement, pervious pavers. Obviously, the maintenance is the big thing, like John mentioned. But the more of these that we get in, the better. We're always happy to have that discussion and talk about potential projects that we could partner in. My board's always asking me, hey, you got any research projects? You're looking at what's out there. Certainly willing to have that conversation and have that discussion.
Thank you, Christian. And my final question before we take it, open it up to the public. I know Council Flaherty mentioned it, and John mentioned it, and I mentioned it, but still the private sewers and alleys in many parts of the city, including the south end, there's still a lot of confusion who is responsible for the maintenance. What I'm always concerned about is if there is a major problem during construction and the water pipe breaks, and it's a private sewer. And as we know, a lot of residents might not be home. It might be a four unit condo, or renters, and we don't know exactly how to reach people. But the cost of sewer maintenance and repairs are expensive. But the repairs are also critical for the safety and health of our residents and neighbors. So what are we doing proactively? Because eventually there will be a major water pipe break, or a construction related issue that ruptures the pipes, especially in these private alleys. What else can we do to be proactive in try to address the problem now before something major happens?
That's directed to me, Council?
Yeah, it's directed at you, but also if Christian wants to weigh in, because if he wants to weigh in, but it's for you, John.
Yeah, so we do talk to people with private alleys because they call us up a lot, and if there's a particular backup or whatever, we give them advice. The equipment that we use is the same equipment the private contractors do, and in general, people get a hold of a private contractor, they go in, they maintain the pipe. We do tell them about our betterment policy. Some people take advantage of it, some people don't. Now, we have been working with several people in the South End, and we have agreed, working with the mayor's office, that perhaps the burden of getting all the neighbors together shouldn't be placed on the neighbors. The burden of contacting all the neighbors and making sure everybody understands what can be done should be handled by a combination of city people and ourselves. And we've all agreed that we would do that, that if people want to do that, we would take that burden on, knocking on the doors, trying to get people, everyone works different hours. And
Yep.
we could take that burden off of the homeowners, which we previously gave to them, I will admit, and we will pursue that and see if there's any interest in them undertaking that.
No, that's good to know. At this time, I'm going to open it up to questions or comments from the public. Kerry, how do you want to do this, Kerry, with the comments or questions from the public?
As they already started to, if folks can raise their hands, we can let those folks in. And the folks who are called in by phone, if they can find a way to, I think it's *6 to raise your hands, we'll go in order as folks raise their hands. So we're going to bring in Mr. Nassis now.
Okay. Mr. Nassis? Hey, Matthew. Matthew, you might have to unmute yourself. You're up.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Matthew.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. It's been a very interesting hearing thus far. So just to relay where I'm coming from, I'm a property owner here in Roslindale. My parents bought this home back in 1985. It's a multifamily building. So I was surprised to learn that I actually have a lead pipe servicing my home. And so you can imagine how I felt knowing I've been drinking this water since 1986. But I have tenants here, and I expressed interest in having the pipe swapped out. People at Boston Water were very friendly and helpful. They sent folks out here, and they did inform me that there was a $2,000 grant, but that was just $2,000 of an over $7,000 expense. And really, it seemed like the situation was assessed for maybe 20 minutes, and I just received a flat estimate for that great expense. And there was no explanation of how many laborers there would be, how many hours that might take, how much the materials cost. So you get a more detailed and itemized estimate when you want to swap out a faucet, in your kitchen sink. But it just seems like a large expense, especially when I heard that it was only going to take 2 or 3 hours of labor. So I'm not sure where all that money is going. I suppose that'd be my first question. I was also told that in that price is factored in a police detail, which I would have to pay for. And of larger concern, I suppose, is that I think the Commissioner said that he was interested in getting all the lead out of Boston. I mean, there are a lot of folks who I think are even property owners who have no idea they're being serviced by a lead pipe. There are a lot of tenants who do not know, paying tenants that do not know their house is being served by a lead pipe. And as a landlord, there's no responsibility or duty upon me to inform my tenants that they're taking their water from a lead pipe, and I am not required to swap it out. So I think this is the potential to be a hot button issue, because I've heard about lead pipe, but I assumed, oh, that's, you know, somewhere in old Boston. It doesn't affect me. Of course it did. So I know that's a lot, but I'll let you guys digest that, and I'd be happy to listen.
Good question. John, do you want to try to take that?
Sure. When we price this out at the beginning of each year, we actually put out a public bid and we award to the lowest bidder, and they give us a price per foot to replace lead on private property. We simply take that number, and that's the number we give you. So if it's $200 a foot and you've got 20 feet, then that's how we just multiply that out. You know, there are other costs of police officers. We can't work on the city street. If we have to break the sidewalk, we have to pay Public Works to put the sidewalk back. So we do detail our costs. I'll have to take a look and see why we don't give you that breakdown. That's pretty straightforward. But it's not like 3 laborers at this much, because it's already a preset price per foot that we receive as a public bid. And that's how we get it. Our public education program, that's what we're trying to do, is reach these tenants, because you're right. If a landlord says, I don't want to spend any money, they're only my tenants, we need to reach these tenants and let them know that that water has to be flushed in order to protect themselves. And that's part of our whole public education program to do that. So that's how we expect to get to that point.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Matthew. Kerry, could you put the next question through for us?
We have Carol Blair in now.
Hey, Carol. Carol, can you unmute yourself? And you're up next for, if you could take 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try not to take that much. My name is Carol Blair. I'm president of Chester Square Neighbors. Like many of you on this Zoom, we live in a row house with shared walls that predate the Civil War. Modern sheetrock hides the old bricks and mortar, which are easily penetrated. For those of you who haven't had this experience, this means that if the rats make it as far as the front yard, they are soon in our living spaces. Most of my neighbors have bait stations, but it seems the rats are not deterred. Unfortunately, we also have broken down stone and mortar sewers. Boston Water and Sewer Commission does not maintain these private sewers, saying the burden of upgrading falls to the abutters, but the abutters pay the same rates as everyone else, as I've heard here, expecting that Water and Sewer will provide sanitary sewage disposal for the waste from our neighborhood. So we need a plan for neighborhood services, and we need help figuring out how to pay for the needed improvements. I really appreciate what I've heard from Councilor Flynn, that we need to be proactive, and from Mr. Sullivan, that Water and Sewer is willing to work with our neighbors, because we have private alleys. We have 5 private alleys in our very small neighborhood. About half of the real estate is owned by nonprofit organizations, which are clearly not set up to do this building maintenance and not set up to allocate funds for this purpose. Probably each of our sewers has about 30 buildings along it. Most have 4 to 8 units each. Some are condos, some apartments, many are non-resident owned. So to organize these neighbors is a huge endeavor. We haven't even begun to figure out how that would happen. But we do believe that, I should say, my husband and I have taken advantage of the lead pipe program, and that works really nicely. You know, we talked with Water and Sewer, we understood what the deal was, we signed the contract, we paid the price, and that worked fine. But that's because we're one building with one owner, and for the neighborhood to engage, you know, our neighbors are not engineers, not community organizers. They don't know how to do this stuff. One more thing, some of the sections of the alleys are now paved in order to tamp down the rats. And I can see now that we would have the opportunity to do some green infrastructure there if we could put porous pavement there, or maybe even we wouldn't need pavement if we don't have the rats. Bottom line though, we need help to develop a plan to figure out how to pay for it. And we believe we deserve modern sewers to support public health in the city. So thank you. You can reach me by clicking Contact Us at ChesterSquareNeighbors.org. Carol Blair is the name, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Good comments, good questions. John, do you want to comment on Carol's
Yeah,
question?
one comment I would like to make sure we all understand is that we will work with a betterment and we'll take over a sewer if it's a private alley that's open to public travel. Now, we've seen many sewers that have many buildings tied into them that run up what looks to be private driveways that's not open to public travel. And we do not own pipes in those backyards. Now, the city is diverse, changed over the years, but I certainly can contact Carol and let's just start from the beginning. Let's see what we have, what we can do, what we can't do, and lay it out, and then we'll proceed from there, if that's okay with Carol.
Thank you, John. If anyone has any questions, if they want to raise their blue hand, I received an email from a constituent. I'm going to read it to you, John and Christian, if you guys want to comment on it. Is there an accurate, accessible database identifying remaining lead pipes in water mains and within buildings which can be accessed to determine where precautions about lead and water are necessary? If such a database exists, how close to a comprehensive list is it? And what should residents do if it's unclear whether they are exposed to this risk on a daily basis?
So my comment is we do maintain a map on our website. It's the lead, what we call the lead map. And if we know that there's a lead pipe going into the building, and the way we would know that is last time we put water meters in, we had the installers check to see what the pipe is. So they would tell us it's a copper pipe, it's a lead pipe. So there's over 4,000 places we absolutely know. Now there's a whole bunch of places we don't know. And that's where I mentioned before, if someone has that question, we will come to the house and we will verify what's coming through the wall, whether it's a lead pipe or it's a copper pipe. And now, if we get inundated with requests, we will get to you, but we can't get to everybody all at once. And we suspect with this offering to come to your home, we will get a lot of requests. But that's how we can ascertain what we have for pipes going into the homes. We leave that open.
Thank you, John. Another comment that came in, neighborhoods such as the South End, Bay Village, Back Bay, Fort Point, others, as we talked about earlier, filled land that rely on wood pilings, as Christian was talking about, for support. And Christian, I know you have done in the past visits to various neighborhood organizations talking about the critical role you play. But if there's any leakage of water pipe damage, and it damages the wood pilings beneath these foundations, what is how do the residents know about it? And what is the response from the city, and what's the dialogue or the communication or cooperation between the residents and the city or in the water and sewer? How does that work?
Well, essentially, a building is going to know if they have an issue with their pilings. One, if they dig a hole, what's called a test pit, and they have an engineer come in and expose the pilings and determine what their what their condition is. The second and more dubious identifier is settlement in their building. When the building owner starts to see cracks above their windows, above doorways, bulges in walls, uneven floors. Thankfully, since I've been here, those are far and few between. The real reason we were established was in 1986. Prior to that, on the flat of the Beacon Hill, there was a bunch of people that had issues with their buildings, and they had those settlement issues. And you had people saying, what's going on here? And then it was, yeah, my building's doing that too, and oh, my building's doing that too. At that time, it was the response of the city to create the trust. And that's really, what we're here for, is to sort of walk people through, well, what are you seeing? These are the next steps. In the event that, the building is compromised and the pilings do need to be repaired, it is right now, it's on the building owner. It's the sole cost of the building owner to repair those pilings, and I'm not going to dance around it. There's no insurance that covers it. There's no program that covers it right now. So the best thing that we can do proactively is monitor these levels in the areas that are low, work what we can do with the people that may be having a negative impact, pipes or whatever that may be leaking, people that may even be having sump pumps in their basement and not know that the building's on piles. And they may have a sump up in there because they're trying to keep it dry. Anywhere else in the country or in the suburbs or anywhere, that's fine because the building's mostly on concrete and you're keeping the space dry. Some people inadvertently that don't know the history of the city and don't know that the building's on pilings, maybe doing damage to themselves. So we've had cases like that too, where people are unaware. So that's why it's important for us to get the word out. But ultimately, we're here to provide as much information as we have and still steer people in the right direction for them to make the best decision.
Thanks, Christian. We do have a couple more comments or questions from the audience. Kerry, you're letting in Marty, is that right?
Correct. If Martin can just unmute, he's free to go.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for organizing this hearing. Often we get carried away thinking enthusiastically and sometimes with trepidation about the digital economy, but of course there's no economy if you don't have a solid physical infrastructure, and this is about as basic as you can get. I live in the Back Bay on Beacon Street, and the back of the building does actually back onto a private alley back street, which is open to public traffic. And I think several years ago, I believe that the sewers were in fact taken over or at least repaired by the city to everybody's benefit. But I do have one comment about our private alley, which is that in this alley, there are no fire hydrants. And it strikes me that that's a risk, and particularly given the history of certain fires in the Back Bay. Because if you have to run a hose from the front of the building down an alley somehow to the back, that can cause you to lose precious minutes. So I hope that there'll be found a way to put fire hydrants along Back Street. I would like to say that I did notice in John Sullivan's very interesting presentation, I noticed a number of bottles behind him, which I assume did not contain Boston water, but something more interesting to drink, which gets me to the uses of water, because I was struck by the evidence that usage of water seems to have fallen quite a lot over the last couple of decades. And I'm wondering why that is. Have we become much more efficient in our use of water? Is it that, through shower heads or new shower heads or whatever it is? Is it that we now tend to drink water from overpriced, specialized water? Maybe we could market Boston tap water, something like Aqua de Boston or Eau de Boston, because I find it personally very refreshing. And where I grew up, certainly we had most of our water intake was tap water, and it was refreshing, it was clean, and it was safe. And perhaps people should do more of that rather than rely upon these sometimes overpriced bottles that we then walk around with and throw away, contributing to the plastic, excessive plastic waste. So these are just a few comments, and I say a question, how we could make sure that we get fire hydrants on some of these private alleys that may be important to make it more possible to fight some of the fires which occur more efficiently and rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. John, do you want to try to respond to that?
Sure. Yeah, on Back Street several years ago, we had some sewers that we owned. And when we replaced those sewers, we put in gigantic infiltration systems to help the Back Bay water table. There are no public water mains back there. There are no water mains back there. And we did speak with the fire department several times, especially after that tragic fire that we had. And we suggested that because we don't have any place to connect these hydrants, and it'd be a massive, very expensive undertaking to build a private or build a public fire protection system back there. We asked the fire department, is there a way you can do it without undertaking this very expensive cost on the back of the public? And they took a look at it and said, okay, now we understand you can't do it. If the public main was there, they would already be on. And so the fire department acquiesced and said, fine, we can fight these fires. As long as we know there's nothing back there, we can lay the hoses down there. So that was brought up to us and we did look at it, but that's where that sits. As far as the use of water, the building codes have changed. You can't buy toilets that use 5 gallons a minute per flush, and that's where most of your water is going anyway. They're 1.5 liter. So because of the way the systems have been built, and this is good because you saw that we now have water, we can support the city for years to come. And if we have a major drought, we'll all be able to get through it because the plumbing standards have been decreasing the amount of water that these fixtures can use. Your shower head's another example. They finally made them that you feel like you're getting a lot of water, but it's not wasting the water that we used to waste. And so that's a very positive outcome. And the fact that people are more conscious about their water. People pay attention to it. Children are scolded by their parents about running the water when they're brushing their teeth. I've heard rumors that husbands may get scolded when they're running the water when they're shaving. And I have real life proof of that. So there is that that's gone on. As a public, we've become more educated. We understand it better, but it's really the building codes that control that.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Derek Lessing. Derek, are you on with us? Derek, you may have to unmute yourself and then if you have 2 minutes if you'd like to offer a comment or a question. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, so thanks for taking my call and thanks for organizing this, Councillor Flynn. I'd like to speak further about the betterment process. John Sullivan and I know each other because we have a private sewer and we have started this, and he's worked with us. And overall, the process has been pretty well. The BWSC has done what they've promised to do. But here's the thing. I think we have one of the largest private sewers in the South End, maybe of the city. We have 16 buildings and 78 residential units using one private sewer. And organizing all these people is tough. A lot of the residents rent from landlords that live out of the city. And frankly, I don't think these landlords necessarily are interested in the costs of maintaining a sewer. For a lot of residents, it came as a shock that they were responsible for a private sewer. This is never disclosed in real estate transactions. And so when our betterment got to the stage of the engineering report, we got a final price of $11,400 per residential unit. And that's just too many for a lot of people. And I asked for a delay for the final hearing, frankly, because I was worried we wouldn't have enough people to actually show up at the hearing and that we'd have enough interest in the betterment to see it go through because of these costs and because people are coming from very different directions, for how they feel about this. And so, at the end, we're left in a situation where do you try to wrangle people and convince them that 75% of the cost of this for a new sewer, putting that down now is good for the future? Or do you wait for the inevitable catastrophe? And then we're all going to be on the hook for 100% of the cost. And so that's what I'm trying to wrestle and educate my neighbors about. But there's a lot of them, and it's tough, I have to say. It's tough. I just wanted to comment on that process. They've been pretty good partners about it so far. It's just, I got to think that there's a better way to do this, though. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Derek. John, do you want to try to respond to Derek's comment?
Yeah, well, I agree with Derek, and it's been actually very good working with Derek. He's done a lot of the legwork. As I mentioned before, we have agreed that we would pick up that legwork. So volunteers such as Derek would not have to try to chase everyone down. That doesn't mean we can convince anybody to do something. It is a shock to most people because if they can flush, it goes away, life is pretty good. The day that it doesn't go away, then it's a problem. You know, an investment of $11,000 is tough if you've got to come up with it right away, but we can put together payment plans where it's significantly less over a period of time. That doesn't make it any better, but there is that possibility. And then once we build that sewer, and in places like in the South End, we also build for the rainwater infiltration systems. Once we build that, we own it. We own that sewer. There is no more maintenance anymore. In the future, when you go to sell it, you can say the city owns this, they maintain it, and when it needs replacement, which it will someday, they will come in and replace it. It's their problem. So I don't know what else to say. We have been working with Derek. It has been a pleasure. I would like to see the thing move forward, and I'm not sure what the next move is, but Derek, you certainly can call me and we can chat about it tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you, John. That'd be very helpful if we can continue that conversation. I'm going to go for a second round with my colleagues. I think my only colleague on right now is Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, do you have any final comments or questions before I ask the panelists to conclude?
I have a very niche question for Mr. Sullivan, which is just, has there ever been a situation where we've owned a public sewer under a public right-of-way and then the right-of-way was abandoned such that now we own the sewer, but what's above it is private?
Yes, it's not uncommon for people to abandon public ways through the Public Improvement Commission. When that occurs, we get an easement. So we secure rights to be able to go in there and fix that sewer whenever we need to in the future. And it's not an uncommon practice at all. With a lot of this redevelopment, you can't change where the sewer goes. It's got to flow downhill and it's got to go in one direction. So we secure rights to protect the ratepayer in the future for our ability to get in and work on that particular sewer.
Great. Thank you. Just curious. And yeah, thank you so much for your work. Like I said at the start, this is just so fundamental to our city. We all have to do everything we can fiscally and in your departments in terms of your day-to-day work to safeguard it. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Bach. We have some public testimony that came in over the emails that will be added to the record. Some of the questions, some of the concerns were already discussed, but I'm going to go through the public testimony. And if there's any specific questions that we haven't asked tonight, I'm going to send them to you, John and Christian, and maybe we can get a response back to the residents. But having said that, Christian, would you like to conclude with final comments before we conclude the meeting?
Sure. Just briefly jumping on John's note about Back Street and putting in the recharge system. Water and sewer and the repairs that sewers that they have. He mentioned the installation of recharge galleys, and those big galleys that they put in Back Street actually raised the groundwater table over the past 10 years, almost 3 feet on average to all the wells. So, putting in these systems, the more they're fed, the more rainwater that falls, the more water we get in the ground, the more leaks we fix, all that's going to have a positive impact on the water table. And, the more recharge systems, the better. Counselor, obviously, this is directed to both counselors, obviously all counselors. If there's any association, neighborhood group, anybody that reaches out to you with questions, we're more than happy to connect with them and have a discussion, review it as what we do. That's part of my day-to-day is really doing this stuff, and we're more than happy to do it. And thank you for having me. And thank you to John, of course. I can't thank you to John. He's been a wonderful partner throughout all these years, and I expect that'll continue.
Thank you, Christian. John, would you like to give final comments, please?
Well, it just make sure that everyone understands that the men and women of the Boston Water Sewer are here to serve them. And like I said, we're a silent service. So generally you don't hear from us if we're doing our job right and everything's working. Director Henry Vitale makes sure that everyone knows that works for the commission. That's their job. They're there to serve. And we also understand and get a lot of support from our commissioners and the mayor for all the work we do. So, we're very appreciative. Anybody, feel free to call us. I left those phone numbers. Questions about lead, we will get back to you. We will take care of it. We're here to give you the best water in the world. We're here to make sure the climate in the future for your kids are going to be awesome in the city, because it is an unbelievable city.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Christian. I just want to conclude by saying thank you to John and the dedicated team at the Boston Water and Sewer Commission. And thank you to Christian and the Boston Groundwater Trust. They do exceptional work as well. And someone from the public testified about the importance of this issue. If we don't, and we are doing well, but if we don't get this issue right, nothing works. But it's these quality of life, nuts and bolts issues in city government. They're not glamorous, but let's continue to work together to provide the best quality services we can for the residents, especially during this difficult time. And John, there's nothing better I like doing in the summertime when it's 100 degrees on a Saturday than stopping my car and seeing the water and sewer workers that are doing tremendous job in our city. I love talking to them. They take their job very seriously. They're very professional, and they represent what this city is all about, is just doing the nuts and bolts and delivering basic city services to the residents. And that's what our constituents expect of us. And I wanted to highlight the professional work that the water and sewer team does. I also wanted to say thank you to Henry Vitale. I want to say thank you to Mayor Walsh and my colleagues as well for taking this issue very seriously. And having said that, I want to thank the public for testifying. I'm going to keep this hearing in committee, and maybe sometime in February or March, I may have another hearing on this as well. I wanted to say thank you to Kerry and Juan from Central Staff for being here tonight, for working hard almost until 7 o'clock. And I appreciate the professional work that the City Council Central Staff has done as well. So having said that, thank you, John. Thank you, Christian. And thank you to my colleagues in the Boston City Council. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, all.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.